Cinemassacre's Kongathon. Wow. Okay. Here we are. I saw Kong Skull Island, and I don't know. I don't know how to rate this one. I know that I liked it. I think it was a blast, but it's probably not for everyone. And I think part of the issue is that Kong has always been held as this high standard. Like, the original was this groundbreaking masterpiece. And with the 76 remake and the 2005 remake, even if you didn't like those, you can tell that they treated it like it was important. It was this thing that they had to get right, this high-class work of art. But this one doesn't take itself seriously. This one comes right out and says, hey, let's have fun with it this time. It's like a glorified B-movie. A group of people go on an island, they meet natives, a bunch of monsters come out, Kong fights the monsters, lots of stuff blows up, and that's about it. There's not much more to it. I guess that sounds like the basic plot of the original, but it's sort of an empty shell of it, not much underneath the surface. It's more like the plot of all the movies that have imitated Kong in the past 80 years. If you can accept that, and if you're just looking for a fun monster movie, then yes, this delivers. The best purpose this film serves is to reboot Kong so he can fight Godzilla in the new shared monsterverse. It's no secret that all these movies coming up are connected. It officially began with the 2014 Godzilla reboot, and now we have Skull Island, and next is Godzilla King of the Monsters. And by the way, I really wish they'd come up with more original titles. But anyway, it culminates in 2020, supposedly, with Godzilla vs. Kong. It's about time. It's crazy that all these crossover movies are finally happening now. Marvel did it first, DC's trying to catch up, and now the Universal monsters are coming back too. It's insane. So about Skull Island, it has an interesting time period. They chose to set it in the 70s, the Vietnam era, Viet Cong, if you will. There's some guerrilla warfare going on. Okay, that's enough. But the opening scene takes place during World War II, so Kong appears in the 40s, but the Godzilla reboot's set in the present day, I think. So I assume that means by the time Kong fights Godzilla in 2020, it's going to take place 80 years later. So Kong is really old, but then again, Godzilla's prehistoric, so who cares, I guess. Anyway, I really like the setting. It's like Apocalypse Now, but with monsters, There's jungles and sunsets. It looks awesome. There's some great shots where Kong is lit by the sun, and it's really badass. The characters are all fine. Everybody does a decent job, but they're kind of stock. There isn't much to them. I don't really love or hate any of them. There's no villain characters that you want to see Kong kill, nor is there anyone who you're genuinely concerned for. They all fit the same basic roles as any generic monster movie, but the cast playing these characters are all first rate. Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, and two of my favorites, Samuel L. Jackson and John Goodman. No matter what movie they're in, they have such a commanding presence. They walk into a scene and they just own it effortlessly. But this movie, there isn't really a good script for them to work off. They're still using the best of their abilities, but there's just nothing there. You know what I mean? It reminds me of all those low-budget monster movies that star big-name actors before they were famous. This feels just like it should have been their first movie, like we're watching time go backwards. It's surreal. But that only brings me full circle and reminds me that this is just like one of those old monster movies, perhaps like the ones produced by Roger Corman that would launch the careers of well-known stars. The real oddball character is John C. Reilly. As soon as he appears, it's like, oh, we're being funny now. When I first saw him, I found it a little jarring, like seeing Jack Black in Peter Jackson's Kong, but here, instead of playing it straight, they let him be a total goofball. It makes sense because his character has been stranded on the island for 28 years. He crashed his plane during World War II, so after all that time, I can see why he'd be so loony. The funny parts are funny. There's a part that got a big reaction in the theater where he's like waving a knife and he says something like, I'm going to cut you by the end of the night. And everybody lost it. Like, where did that come from? Now, of course, the character we all come to the movie for is Kong. This is the biggest, toughest Kong we've ever seen. He's able to take down the military, establishing early on that he's not going to go down as easily as the original. I mean, after all, he's going to have to fight Godzilla eventually. I like how he stands upright. Instead of trying to make him so much like a real ape, like in the Peter Jackson version, they make him out to be more like a made up type of ape monster. Not that there's anything wrong with either version, it was just a nice reinvention of the character. They are missing a lot of the elements that make Kong a sympathetic, tragic character. I think deep down inside, you can tell he's the same Kong you know and love, but you don't see much of his personality. You know what I mean? You don't really get the chance to know Kong in this movie like you do in the others. But this isn't a movie that's trying to give you much drama, it's more about the action and the monster battles. The music is all late 60s and most of it early 70s, just to remind you what time period we're in. It reminds me of Forrest Gump in that regard, except Gump did it much better before it became such a cliche. I don't mind it. I love hearing all those good rock songs, especially when Black Sabbath Paranoid comes on. You know how in movies, when you hear a song that you've heard 1,000 times, but you're hearing it coming through all the surround speakers? It sounds so good. There's a part where one of the helicopters gets smashed and the song Paranoid goes into slow speed or like some weird effect, and then it all comes back. So there's some nice sound design going on there. Also, there's some silly editing gags, like when Kong's about to eat someone and then it cuts to somebody else eating a sandwich. That sums up the tone. The best part, or at least the part that got the best reaction in the theater, was the post-credit scene. Yeah, I won't say what it is, but it got a huge applause. I usually hate those post-credit things. Everyone says, hey, make sure to wait after the credits, and then you wait and it's something stupid. But this time I say definitely don't miss that. And I think they should have put it before the credits. It would have been the perfect note to close on. In conclusion, it's just an entertaining monster movie. If you're looking for something more, you may be disappointed. It was a lot of fun, never boring. It didn't have any parts that dragged. It hit that 2-hour sweet spot without going over time. It just felt right. I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next movies in the shared monsterverse.